I record every time. So. All right, so next week is the test number 2. All right, now test number 2 is going to cover which chapters? They are chapters 4, which is job costing and cost allocation, 17, which is process costing, and chapter 5, which is ABC costing. All right, the test is going to be taken here, so don't look at here, it says testing center. The test is going to be taken here. If you were in my online class, it's at home, it's on at-home test. You can have your PowerPoints with you, so you know that, so you have that information with you. You're more than welcome to have that. Calculator, you can't use your cell phone calculator, you got to have a electric calculator. And you need to bring the calculator. I will not bring the calculator. So please have a calculator with you.
You don't want to books like different.
Yes. Okay. You'll have the entire class period to take the class. That is pretty much that's what the test is. It's about 40 questions. You're going to hit, it's very similar to the last test, multiple choice, and I think there's a few of the equivalent unit problems that we've been doing, which we'll go over a couple of examples of those today, okay? Any questions? All right. Oh, why did I just do that? This is not the right computer. Or this computer. Okay. All right, measuring and aligning the manufacturing overhead. We have allocating manufacturing overhead is critical to estimate the product cost, direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. So we know what direct materials are. Those are the materials that we use to make the products, right? And then we have direct labor, which is the labor that is used to make the products. The overhead is what? What does the overhead include? Yeah, the manufacturing overhead. Yeah, something that we can't tie directly to a product. So that would be like the insurance on the building, taxes, rents, salaries for the higher ups, the managers type things. Things that we really can't allocate to a specific product. All right. Typically, actual direct materials and direct overhead labor costs can be determined, but the manufacturing overhead cost is not known until the end of the year. And so we talked about budgeted and actual, right? And why do we usually use budgeted? Yeah, the budgeted we can pay attention throughout the year, and keep a close eye out on our costs. But if we use actual, we have to wait until the end of the year, right? So that's a little bit more difficult. But then we do analysis at the end of the year. We do variances and things like that, which we're going to get more into after in the next section. So that's not on this test. So we have the single predetermined overhead rate. And this is how we allocate the overhead to products by a single activity. It equals the total estimated manufacturing overhead rate divided by the total estimated activity. Again, these are all estimates, right? And so we get the estimates, what we think we're going to do and how much it's going to take us. And we determine that by, if we say we're going to do $500,000 of overhead, and we're going to base it off of machine hours. We take that $500,000 divided by the total machine hours we're going to use that year, and that's going to be our rate. Okay? We have applied the overhead rate by the PDOR times the actual activity. So once we get the predetermined overhead rate, we take that amount times the actual activity. So if I do it by machine hours, if the product takes me 20 machine hours, we take the overhead rate times 20, okay, to get the overhead. Now, ABC, what is ABC costing? It uses multiple rates by dividing the overhead into groups called cost pools, and choose the activity driver that best allocates those overhead costs to the product. Cost pools may be departments, activities, or processes. We talked about that earlier this semester, a couple weeks ago. where we have, we are trying to break it down more into specific items to get a better allocation of costs to the products. At the end of the year, determine if the overhead was over or under applied by comparing the amount of overhead applied to the actual manufacturing overhead. If actual manufacturing is greater than assigned, that means we underassigned the manufacturing overhead. So say if we assigned $500,000 and we ended up having $600,000 of overhead, we didn't allocate enough. We only allocated 500, we should have allocated 600. And so we under allocated. Now, if we have, say, 500 in what we allocated and we only used 400, then we over allocated. We put too much in there. And so we'll have to do adjusting entries to get that out. Okay, any questions on that so far? All right. So assigning product costs. We have job costing. Now, what is job costing? Use if production is service is unique or custom. Costs are accumulated by job. So what are some examples of job costing that we talked about? Anybody? Yeah, plastic surgery. Of course, I don't think I would ever want to do that. We have like custom furniture possibly, right? Huh? Yes and no. Depends on the, huh? Yeah, if it's a specific car, a very custom car. Like the custom car shows they used to have, I don't think there's any of those anymore. They do? Okay. Shows you.
Yeah.
Was it Chip Foos? Was that his name? Yeah, he did some awesome looking cars.
God. Good guys.
Mm-hmm.
Good guys, yeah.
So those kind of things, it's those, if we're customized cars would be job costing. Airplanes could possibly be job costing. Something very specific. It could be taxes. Of course, once you get as many as we do nowadays, that's not going to work. So, but yeah. So, all right, costs are accumulated by job, and then we have direct material. We can trace that to the job directly. Direct labor, we can trace that to the job. But then the manufacturing overhead, we have to assign it to the job using our predetermined overhead rates, department or ABC rates, okay? All right, so let's look at this example. Process costing. What is process costing? What are some examples of process costing? Cars. We have also maybe cereal. Pop. Long's Donuts. Anybody been to Long's?
Galen's Donuts.
Oh my gosh. If you're ever down in Indianapolis, you gotta go to Long's.
Yeah.
You have to tell me where that's at.
But they got them at all the gas stations around. Yeah, two back goods is in here. Goods closed up here about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Is it on the 30 one? Up here where across from White used to be. We get up here, by Kmart. Or Kmart up there.
Oh, yeah, that
Now they got Long's Donuts. You can go in there and you can get the glazed donuts and you can request them off.
See, the problem is nobody around here makes chocolate donuts. Nobody knows what they are. The people around here know what they are, but if you go somewhere else, like out of state, they look at you like you're stupid crazy.
No, I know what they are. I used to work in the bakery. So, all right, so use the product as homogeneous mass production. Every unit is the same. So basically we're talking about it's mass produced and one item is not different from the other item, right? And so assuming the cost of donuts during the month of April, add up all the receipts. So we have direct materials, direct labor, and assignment manufacturing to make the donuts. Assign the donuts or cost to donuts that are completed and partially completed. So a local donut shop makes approximately 200 donuts per day. They serve a very small area. Yeah, 200 doesn't last very much longer. No. They have the following costs per month. We have $1,550 in flour and ingredients. We have the baker's labor of $3,000. We assign 20 cents per direct labor dollar. For the month of April, they made and completed 5,800 donuts and have 100 left to be baked on May 1st. All material costs are added at the beginning of the process, and the $100 donuts remaining are 70% complete in regards to conversion costs. Beginning inventory of the donuts is 20 that were 100% complete in regards to direct materials, 80% complete with conversion costs. The costs attached at the beginning were $14.52. The direct materials were $5.25. The weighted average unit is used. How much would it be to complete the donuts? Okay. So let's take a look at this. This is the donut processing. We have the beginning units of 20 units. We added 80, so we have to account for $5,900 units. So we have the 58 that we made because we have 100 left over, and that's how we accumulate all of the donuts. So now direct materials and conversion costs, what did they tell us? That was 100 complete, in and out, everything's done, so 100%. So the equivalent units for direct materials is 5,800. Conversion cost is 5,800. Now, as of the 100, remember it said 100% for the direct materials and 70% for the units or the conversion costs. So I take that 100, that's my direct materials. So for direct materials, I have 59 units or 5,900 equivalent units. But for conversion costs, I take the 70% of 100, I get 70. Add that to the 5,800, I get 5,870 of my equivalent units for the donuts. Okay? So total the total equivalent units for direct materials, 5,900. Conversion is 5,870. Now, we said the beginning work in process, remember, weighted average, basically we add everything together, include everything into our rate per donut, right? So it said we had $14.52 of cost in my beginning work in process. Of that, $5.25 was direct materials. So that means that the rest, which is $9.25, I take the $14.52 minus the $5.25. That gives me the $9.27. Now, how do we come up with the $51.50 that we added into this period? If we go back to the previous thing, what do we have here? It said that we had $11.50 or $15.50 and $3,000. That gives me $45.50 for the direct materials and direct labor. Now it says for the manufacturing overhead, it's $20 or 20 cents per direct labor hour. So what I'm going to do is take that $3,000 of direct labor, multiply it by 0.2, and I get $600. Then if I add all that together, I got the $15.50 for materials, $3,000 for labor, $600 for overhead, and I get $51.50. And that's how I come up with the $51.50. Does everybody see how I did that? Yes, no, baby?
Where's that? Okay.
Right here.
But
Okay.
so you do it.
Which one?
No.
Direct materials is $15.50, and so the conversion costs are your direct labor and your overhead.
Yeah. So I was asking. So added this period, that's the costs that are added this period for what's one, right?
Yes.
So then that's when you go back and look, see what your direct labor and your overhead is.
Mm-hmm. Your direct materials, direct labor.
Direct labor was $15.50 and the $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
You add those up, and then you have to multiply the direct labor times 20%.
Yeah, but if you look at the information that was given to us, the overhead rate, the manufacturing overhead, it's assigned 20 cents per direct labor dollar.
So the overhead out of the labor is 20 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, of direct labor.
So you have to multiply out what the manufacturing overhead is
Yes.
out of 3,000. So the $600 is what is assigned for manufacturing overhead out of direct labor.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right?
Well, no, we base our direct overhead, our manufacturing overhead based on our driver. Our cost driver is the labor, okay? And our rate is 20 cents per dollar of labor. So the overhead is not, I mean, it's based on labor, you know, how much labor you use.
So basically what I'm saying is there's 20 cents on the dollar of the $3,000 in direct labor goes to what you have in manufacturing.
Well, no. Labor is labor. It's what we paid out in labor. Overhead, remember, overhead is
So $600 of that labor goes to manufacturing.
not of the labor. $600 of the total manufacturing overhead, you know, is going into our cost this month.
Okay, so $600 of the overhead goes in. $600 out of that 300 of the labor is part
No,
of the overhead.
The only reason why we're using the labor is because that's the driver. It's like if I decided to base it on the number of donuts I used, okay? So maybe it was 5 cents per donut. Then I would have taken, how many donuts did we make? 5,800. So I would take 5 cents times 5,800, and then that would be my overhead rate. Or that would be my overhead.
And that would be what you would add to the 45.50 instead of 600.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. We just
I get this. It's just confusing.
yeah.
Sometimes
Now we just use those as a tool to divide up the overhead. The overhead is a total different bucket, but we use either possibly the units of production or the hours we used, or in this case, it's dollars that we spent. We use that to help to divide up the manufacturing overhead. Okay, so now I'm having trouble with this. All right, so we know what the direct materials are, which is $15.50. So that tells me if I have a total cost of $51.50, my materials are $15.50. I take the difference, and that's how I get to $3,600. So to account for, what do I have to do? I have to take the $525 and the $15.50. So for direct materials, I have to account for $15.50, $525. For conversion costs, I have the beginning of $927, and then we have the amount that was added this period of $3,600. So my total to account for is $3,609.27. Now, when we determine the rate, because this is weighted average, we're going to take the number of units, the equivalent units, and divide it into the total to account for, because it's weighted average, it's both. Okay. If we were doing first in, first out, which number would I divide the equivalent units into? No, only this amount. Because first in, first out, what does first in, first out tell me? This is the first amount that I spend, right? All right, so no matter what, that's included. But so I would only have to allocate the 1550 in first in, first out. But because it's weighted average, I add these together, I get 1555.25. I use that number divided by the 5,900 units, and I get a rate of 0.26. Okay, first in, first out, I would only use the 1550 because my first entry down here would be the 525. Does everybody understand that? Because it's weighted average, I add them together and base my rate off of the whole thing. So then I take the 26 units, 2,600, 0.26, multiply it by the 5,800. That gives me 1508. That's my transferred out. Then I take the 26 cents times the 100, and I get $26. That's what's in my ending working process for direct materials. Okay? Same concept here. We add the 927 and the 3600. I get 3609.27. I take that number divided by the 5870. So I get a cost per equivalent unit of 61 cents. Take that 61 times the 58. So my transfer out amount is 3538. And then what's left in my work in process is the 70 units times the 61 cents, which is $42.70. Now, if I add these two numbers together, the 1508 and 3538, I get 50 is 46. 26 plus 1470 is the 6870. Add those together, I get 511470, which is what I have to account for. Why is it off? It should be off. It's $50 off. I have to figure out why that's off. That should be off.
It should be 5164, right?
Yeah.
Your total accounted for should be the same as.
It's a rounding issue.
Not the big rounding.
I bet if you take,
It's not.
let's take a look at this, because that's going to bother me. All right, so if I take my equivalent, my 1555.25 and divide it by 5,900, I get an equivalent unit of 26.3 whatever, you know? So if I take that times the 5,800, I get a whole $20 there. Yeah, it's a rounding issue. That's why it's not right. It's yeah, it's a rounding issue. Yep, that's a rounding issue. That's why it's off.
That's why I was having a problem my solution. Because my calculator, I was doing straight calculations like they did, instead of the rounding with all that.
They rounded too early. Now, like if you're using Excel, let Excel, don't round it, okay? Let it, do whatever. Use the formulas in Excel, and then you won't have this issue, okay? Because that's the issue here. That's not 26 cents. That's 26, and it keeps on going. And if you multiply the 26 that keeps on going times the 5,800 and the 100, and you're going to add all of the money up, and it's going to be correct. Okay, so let's look at this in an Excel problem here, so you guys see what I'm talking about. All right, so if I take this information here, if I take the 15, 55, 25 divided by 5,900, that's 0.26 whatever, right? If I take the 3609.27 and divide it by 2870, that gives me no, it's not 5870. So 3609.27 divided by 5870, and it gives me 0.61, goes on forever, whatever. So now, if I take this times the 5,800, I get 1528.89. If I take that times the 100, I get that number right there, 2636. Now, if I format these here, and then if I take this rate times the 5,800 and times the 70, and then if I add these together,
Are you putting a plus in front of one of those?
That's what I
Same thing
got.
as equal.
yeah. See how far off it is? And that matches my 5164.52, which I need to match. Okay? So this example that's on the spread on this thing, they rounded early, and so that's what happens when you round early, and it messes things up. Okay, because I have to allocate 5164. By them rounding early, I didn't allocate $50. So if I use the Excel like this, even though we have 26 cents, that rounds to 26 cents, but because of all those other numbers, I use that multiplied by the 58 and 100 and so forth. That's how I can come up with 5164.52. Okay? Any questions on that? Do you understand? So that's why I say whenever you're using Excel, do the formulas in Excel and let them, keep all that number there. Because if you don't, you round too early, then it's going to mess everything up. Okay? You don't round until the end.
So that's different. It looks like $40.
$50, yeah. 40, yeah, $50. It was almost $50. 49
Yeah,
something.
they got 42.70,
Mm-hmm.
and you got 69.40.
Yeah, see, this is, when they rounded up here at 26 cents and 61 cents, they only got 51.14.70. And they needed 51.64.52. So it was almost $50 difference because of rounding. Okay? So even if you do it in your calculator, take the 1555.25 divided by 5,900.
Don't round it, just.
Don't clear out your calculator there and multiply it by the 5,800. Do the entire multiplication. Okay, don't round it, because a lot of times you'll do the 1552.25 divided by 59, and then, oh, okay, that's 26. So you clear it out and say 0.26 times 5,800. Okay, so don't round it until the end. Now on the test, I'm not going to be, big fat ZX for that. I'm going to say, okay, I understand how you got that number because you rounded earlier than you should have. And that's okay. But to be accurate, don't round until the end. Okay? Questions?
I know I can't use this calculator because it doesn't go off for me. Because I only got 5095.1183.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of places.
Yeah. And that's fine. I mean, that's, you're off a little bit, but, I would know it's because of the calculator. Okay? All right, any questions on that? Yes, no, maybe? Now, on the test, a couple of the things that you'll see is this template that you can use. So basically, you would fill in how much to account for, your beginning inventory, your add-in, your ending inventory, your beginning inventory, your add-in, and what to account for. And then beginning work in process, the numbers here, and then how you would allocate the equivalent units over there. And then you would calculate the cost per equivalent unit, and then the outputs, the amounts here. It's very similar to what we have had on the Excel spreadsheet. You can write it out if you want to on a piece of paper like we do in the Excel spreadsheet, or you'll be given these to be able to do it too, okay? Huh? Yeah.
So see how numbers flow.
Yeah. And on the paper test, what I'll do is I'll have, like the forms like I did on the Excel spreadsheets, and you'll just be able to have to fill those in. I'll provide you with that information. If you're taking the online test, which you would if you were in my online cost accounting class, you can use this too, or that they give this to you on the test. Okay? Any questions? And then that's for FIFO, and then of course weighted average. Okay. All right, allocating manufacturing overhead is critical to estimate the product cost. Typically, actual direct materials and direct labor cost can be determined, but the direct manufacturing cost is not known until the end of the year. Did we already do this?
Yep.
How did I go backwards? All right, so here is an example of computing the overhead. So we have a single predetermined overhead rate. We have Clark County applies manufacturing overhead based on direct labor hours. Information concerning the manufacturing overhead and the labor for the August is as follows. So overhead cost, we estimated 160, actual was 161. Labor hours were 8,000, actual 82. Overhead costs, or labor costs were 120, actual 115.8. Using the overhead rate, what you must calculate first, how much applied manufacturing overhead would Clark apply to production? So, how would I do this? First of all, I have to determine what is my overhead rate. And it says direct labor hours. So how would I do that? I would take the 160, which is the overhead that we estimated, and I would divide it by the number of hours that I think I'm going to use. So 160 divided by 8 is $20 per unit or per hour. All right? So that's the rate I use. I take the 160, which is my estimated overhead cost, divide by my direct labor hours that estimated of 8,000. And so for every labor hour I have, I'm going to charge $20 for direct materials, or direct overhead. So now, how many hours did I have? I had 8,200 hours. So I'm going to take that 8,200, multiply it by the 20, and I get what? 164. So I allocate 164,000. Okay? So this is what I allocated. Now, what was my actual? Was 161, right? So did I allocate too much or not enough? Too much. Okay, so I over allocated. By how much? 3,000. Okay. Okay. Does everybody understand that concept?
So you're figuring out if you allocated too much or too little. Right?
Okay. So when you're first looking at this, at the beginning of the year, all you know is what you estimate. Okay. So it's based on direct labor hours. So for my manufacturing overhead rate, what I'm going to do is say what I estimate my overhead cost is going to be 160, divided by the number of hours that I am going to have, which is 8,000. That's what I think I'm going to do. Okay, because we talked earlier, we said what? We have to use estimates because we don't know what we're actually going to do until the end of the year, right? And we want to do some budgeting and analysis throughout the year. So we do this based on the overhead rate. We know what direct materials are going to be. When we, that's a given. Whenever what we pay for is what we pay for. We know what direct labor is. What we pay for is what we pay for. But the overhead, that's where we don't know for sure. That's always an estimate, okay? So we apply the overhead rate of $20 per unit, which is 160 divided by 8,000, right? $20 per unit. So now, every period has gone by, every week has gone by. So every time we pay out someone, we take the number of hours we paid for times that overhead rate, okay? And we allocate the overhead, the manufacturing overhead. So then we can look at it and say, okay, here are my total costs. But at the end of the year, what happens is, we've allocated all the overhead, but sometimes because it's an estimate, we either over-allocate it or we under-allocate it. So how do we figure that out? We compare what we allocated to what we actually did. So now everything's happened. We actually had $161,000 in overhead costs. We actually had $8,200 in direct labor hours, or 8,200 direct labor hours. So if I take that 8,200 times my 20, that's what I did. Now every time I did a labor hour, I multiplied by 20. So I allocated 164,000. Okay, so that's what I put on my book, saying this is my overhead, this is what I think my overhead is going to be. At the end of the year, when I look at that number, what I allocated compared to my actual overhead costs, then I've got to make adjustments for that because you're not going to hit it right on the nose. It's not possible. All right?
But you estimated too low. How
We
can you allocate more when you estimated too low?
based on the labor hours. If I had put this at 100 or 8,200, I actually spent more and I had more hours. Okay? The hours is what drove it.
If you're underestimating the overhead and the labor hours, you would look less than
If I overestimated, which is what I did, I did more than what I thought I did. So because the rate is based on what I think is going to happen, and then I take that rate times what I actually do, and that's what drives it. So if this had actually been 8,000 here, 8,000 times 20 would have given me 160. So I would have allocated the whole 160 here, and I would have been under allocated because my actual cost was 161. Okay? It's just a guesstimate until the end. You're guessing what you did. Does that help a little bit?
yes.
Huh?
Estimating, yes.
Well, I mean, if you look at the numbers, we're not far off. Okay? But because the direct labor hours are 200 more, that means I actually allocated more than I thought I was going to allocate. Because I only thought I was going to allocate 160. But based on my rate, because I had 200 hours more than what I thought, I allocated $4,000 more than I thought I would. And then, of course, that means look at the actual. I still over allocated, but I did spend more than I thought I was going to spend. You have your budget. It's just like your personal budget. You have your budget. What you think you're going to spend, and then something happens and you have to make adjustments, right? My mom's original electric bill was $186, and lo and behold, they did the recalculation because I have her on the budget bill, and it's only $156 this month. but I budgeted for 186, so I was a happy camper, you know? Same thing here. We budgeted for 160, we spent 161. We budgeted 8,000, we actually spent for 8,200. Okay? At the end of the year, we take those numbers into consideration and we make adjustments for that. Okay? All right, so ABC problem. What does the ABC problem do? Yeah, besides giving you a headache, it breaks things down more, right? In the previous example, what did we do? We only had one rate, and it was direct labor hours, right? That was the only rate we had. But what are some advantages and disadvantages of that? Advantage is it's easy. You only have to worry one rate. But a disadvantage would be you're not drilling down to the cost, because one thing might be driven by the direct labor, but another thing might be driven by the number of units you produce. Okay? So ABC takes that in consideration. You don't just have one item that you're basing your cost on, the splitting up of your overhead costs. So Bentley Company makes products C and D. Information for the overhead costs for the two products appear below. The company makes 50,000 units of product C each year and 20,000 units of product D. All right, so you have to break this up by activities. So in this case, we have activities of setups, ordering parts, machining, inspection, and shipping. Okay? So then what are the things that drive those costs? Well, setups, of course, is going to be the number of setups. We have ordering parts, the number of parts that you order. We have machining, and that would be machine hours. Okay? Then we have inspections, which would be the number of inspections, and shipments would be the number of shipments. So, how do we figure this out? We have total overhead costs for each one. So, not only do we break this up by activity, we break the overhead cost up into each group. And then we have the product C uses 500 setups, product D uses 1,500 setups. So that's a total of 2,000 setups, right? And so I take the 200,000.
So is the setups given?
Yes. That is going to be given. Okay? So you're going to be given all this information. You just have to determine what your overhead rate is. Okay? So you're going to take the 500 plus the 1,500, which gives you 2,000, and 200,000 divided by 2,000 is $100 per setup. Okay? So that means that every product, we say, okay, we have how many setups? Maybe it took one setup for that, so I'm going to apply $100 for that one product. Okay? Then, ordering parts. I have a total overhead of 300,000. C has 60. D has 40. So that's a total of 100 parts. 300 divided by 100 gives me $3 per part. Okay? So then, every time I have a product, how many parts do I use? Say 10. I take the 10 parts times 3, and I get $30 of overhead. Okay? Machine hours. We have 12,000 is 6,000, which is a total of 18,000. Take that 18,000 divided to the 600, I get $33.33 per machine hour. So if product C uses 10 hours, then that would be 10 times 33. Okay? Then on inspections, it's number of inspections. So I have 10 and 40. That's 50,000 inspections. 400,000, take the 400 divided by 50, I get $8 per inspection. Shipments, we're going to ship 10,000 and 10,000 for a total of 20,000 shipments. Take that number, divide it into 300. 300 divided by 20 is $15 per shipment. Okay, so does everybody understand how we got the overhead rates? Okay. Using ABC and assuming that the activity is the estimated and actual, how much overhead would be assigned? So we have each one, and then okay, so we're going to look at product D. So product D is all this right here. So I'm going to take the 1,500 setups times the 100. I get $150,000. Then I'm going to take the 40,000 times 3. 40 times 3 gives me 120. Machining, I'm going to take the 6,000 times the 3333, and I get 200,000. Inspections, I'm going to take the 40 times the 8, and I get 320. Shipments, I'm going to take the 10 times the 15, I get 150. Add all these numbers, my assigned overhead for product D is $940. Now, how much is the overhead for the whole thing? I take we did 20 units and $20,000, 20,000 units. I take the 940 of the overhead, that's the total overhead assigned, divided by the 20,000, and my overhead rate per unit is $47. Does everybody see that? Yes, no, maybe. Oh, you guys will not believe this. Oh, there it is. Ooh. Ooh. I thought I lost it. All right. So does everybody understand that? So those are some of the big parts of the test. You're going to have several problems like those. To determine that. So maybe
There's more problems than there is multiple choice.
I'll have to look. I'm not sure. A lot of it is multiple choice, but you'll have problems within the multiple choice. Yeah. Okay.
We know you have to do no concerns or anything like that.
I'm not sure. Let me take a look. Alright, so where is it? Alright. So remember, PDOR is predetermined overhead rate. You have one where you have to determine the rate. They give you all the information. Know what job costing and process costing is. You need to know the difference between actual costing, normal costing, standard costing, budgeted costing. Okay? You need to know how to determine if it is overhead, over-applied or under-applied. So that means you compare what your actual is to what you applied, and then determine if it's overhead, over or under-applied. Know how to figure the overhead rates based on budgeted and actual. Know what conversion costs are. You have direct labor or direct materials, and then conversion costs. What is included in conversion costs? Anybody? What are the three parts of our costs? Direct materials. Okay, so if direct materials, just regular direct materials, what's conversion cost? What does it take to convert something from direct materials to the product that's left over? Direct labor and overhead. Conversion costs are direct labor and overhead.
Conversion costs is just directly
Think of it this way: what does it take to convert materials to the product? What do you add to the materials to get the product? You add the direct labor and you add the overhead. Okay? We've talked about FIFO, the equivalent units in FIFO. Remember I said, we talked about where in weighted average we add the beginning work in process plus the add-ins, and then we based our rate on everything. But in first in, first out, what do we base our rate on? Only what we add in, right? Remember that. How do you calculate, as I said earlier, how do you calculate the overhead rates? In all the different types of costing: normal costing, budgeted costing, standard costing. It's a lot of overhead rates. Review the Bentley problem.
What?
The Bentley problem from the review that we just did. Be familiar with that problem. Yeah, the ABC problem we just went over. That was Bentley. Okay?
Yes,
You have to basically do that on a couple of them. We have to do that process that we did. Okay? Know the details behind product costing.
The what?
The details behind product costing. What is product costing? Get the total overhead per unit. Things like that. So you got a lot of determining the rates. Indirect cost, direct cost. What are the differences? And how do you allocate them? Know what cost pools are. Know the difference between job costing systems and process costing systems. Remember on one of our homework assignments that we had to do, we did job costing and process costing. Or you had like a list of 20 or so that you had to determine if it was job or process.
You're not going to throw one in there that's going to either, are you?
That wasn't a solid no.
There's one on here that could be either job or process costing.
So you'll take you.
I don't know.
Well, if you said if you wanted to.
I mean, we kind of, in my situation, it might be process costing because of how many we do, but yeah. Most accounting firms, you know, you keep track of your hours. We don't. So for us, it's process costing, but most accounting firms, it's job costing.
That's free, right?
That's something you better remember.
What is, what would not be part of process costing? You know, they give you a list of items and they say, which one of these is not process costing? You got some equivalent units, you gotta know how to do equivalent units, stuff. Weighted average, yeah. Okay. You got quite a few problems that you have to do that kind of stuff on.
Big problems are.
That's what I'm getting to. Oh, there's only 33 problems. There's actually only 33 problems on the test. But again,
Which one?
a lot of figuring stuff. And what you got, you know, a lot of equivalent units, determining rates, things like that. So what I would do is probably review all the homework assignments, review, you know, all the PowerPoints, have examples, you know, do example after example.
Have PowerPoints with you.
Yeah. You have the answer keys to all the homework problems. Those are posted. All the chapter problems, all the problems in the
What
book.
you had up on here today, is that available?
Mm-hmm.
Is that available for review?
Mm-hmm.
PowerPoint?
Yep, that's under session 10. I think we're in 10, right? Yeah, it's under 10. It's up there, so it's available for you guys right now. So, but I would look at some problems in the book because the answer keys to all the problems are posted. You know, so do examples of each type of problem that we've done, and just to make sure you understand how to do it from beginning to end, and then look at the answer keys to see, okay, yes, I did it, or try to understand why you got it wrong. Okay?
So it is actually on chapter 4, 17, and 5, right?
Yes.
Make
4,
sure
5, and 17.
It's actually 9.
Nope. 4, 5, and 17. Any questions? No? How do you guys feel? It is what it is?
Is what it is, it's probably that.
I wasn't going out.